please rise for a pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Dunwoody is absent. Alderman Ravencraft?
Here.
Alderman Colbert?
Here.
Alderman Turner?
Here.
Alderman Bill? Here. Alderman Lewis?
Here.
Can I get a motion to approve December 16th, 2025 meeting minutes, please?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to special items, none. Appointments to boards and commissions, we have none for appointment. Scheduled public comments, we have none. Just a reminder that public comments need to be into the city clerk by Wednesday before the meeting date. Public hearing, we have none. Introductions and first readings, we have none. Moving on to old business. We'll read the ordinance and table
These
it.
first two items, the annexation and the rezone, the new property owner has been on vacation and has not stopped by to sign off on any new forms, so we are asking that these items be tabled for tonight. We'll follow up at our next meeting if he's able to make it in by then. Founder's Ridge, that infrastructure is also incomplete, so we'll be asking to table that second read as well.
All right, can I get a motion to table ordinance number 1538, an ordinance extending the corporate city limits of the city of Ashland, Missouri by annexing unincorporated area?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Colbert?
Aye.
Alderman Turner?
Aye.
Alderman Ravenscraft?
Aye.
Alderman Bill? Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
All right. Can I get a motion tabling ordinance number 1539, an ordinance to change the zoning of two parcels of land from A1 to R1 zoning?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Bill?
Right.
Alderman Colbert?
Aye.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Ravenscraft?
Aye.
And Alderman Turner?
Aye.
All right, ordinance number, can I have a motion to table ordinance number 1540, an ordinance approving Founder's Ridge Final Plat 2?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Colbert?
Aye.
Alderman Ravenscraft?
Aye.
Alderman Turner?
Aye.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Bill?
Aye.
Discussing a banning of e-bikes in certain areas of Ashland.
So this is a continuation from our last meeting. We had a public hearing last meeting. We had a few of you that were absent last meeting. So just placing this on the agenda to have some continued discussion, or allow for some continued discussion. We do need some direction as staff. You'll see in my report, we will need some direction, whether tonight or at a future meeting, just to kind of put this matter to bed if there's a desire to ban or not ban. Regardless, we'll come back with an ordinance to add certain definitions to code as it relates to these e-bikes, because we just quite frankly don't have anything in code currently. So we will flesh that out across the appropriate chapters where necessary and bring an ordinance to that effect. But if there is a desire for continued discussion, exploring options to ban, I did invite the park board to be here tonight to give comment. I don't know that Elizabeth is going to make it. I have not heard from her, but she was going to come speak on the issue if there was questions for her. If not, we can follow up via email and get some questions answered if there are any specifically for the park board.
And I would just emphasize, as I think I mentioned last time for folks who weren't there, state statute does allow a city to regulate this if you have a public hearing. So we've done that. We've checked that box. Doesn't mean we have to ban them, doesn't mean we have to regulate them, but that was the purpose for that somewhat unusual step. We've now had that public hearing, and so if we are free to pursue regulating those if we wish.
Any other discussion that wants you?
I'm still not for it, but I'm sure that was assumed.
I mean, there's several chatter on Facebook, I know that, so it's been all over Facebook.
I mean, I can tell you as your city prosecutor, putting that prosecutor hat on, you put a sign up that says no e-bikes in a particular area, that will dissuade a certain percentage of people. But the reality is let's suppose somebody decides, I'm gonna do it anyway. It requires someone to notice that, contact the police go out there. I'm not saying they wouldn't launch a federal case, but they probably wouldn't. So I just want to be realistic. I think that e-bikes can be difficult and there are problems, no doubt, and there are liability issues. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I don't want there to be a thought that I sometimes encounter, well, we put a sign up making something illegal, that activity will therefore completely stop. Obviously, that's unlikely to happen. You tend to see a reduction. I'm not saying it's impossible that the police would be able to write a ticket. If they were successful in doing that, I presume I would have no difficulty in prosecuting it, but. The 32nd version of the public hearing, for those who are absent, Missouri law has a very confusing categories of vehicles, stuff with wheels, there's all these different rules. Is it an e-bike, a motorcycle, a motorized bike, an electric bike? Some of those vehicles have special rules and regulations. It doesn't mean we can't ban them or regulate them, it just it's Kyle's point, requires some specific vocabulary, some specific definitions, but at this point, if the city, we have some folks that don't feel like this is something we need to do, perfectly appropriate. I feel like there are some who feel like, yeah, we should ban these, for example, in the park. We can certainly entertain that.
So let's say, for example, we don't ban them and somebody goes to the park and gets hurt or hurts somebody. Of course, who's liable?
Well, it can happen on a regular
Well,
bike, though.
no, I'm just saying.
I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, so, in the distinction here, and we're an open, and I hesitate to give in-depth legal advice. There's a difference between you can't get sued, because you can sue under a great variety of circumstances.
Right.
And whether that lawsuit would be successful. If somebody gets hurt on city property, I think it's safe to assume someone would consider suing the city. We are not liable for somebody else who's negligently operating a bicycle on our property. We are not required to ban these things. We're under no duty or affirmative obligation to do so. I don't think a lawsuit where person A is struck by person B on the park on a bicycle, they might entertain suing us, but my opinion is we would confidently be dismissed from that lawsuit. Judge, it's not our negligence, it's not our duty, we have no problem. Again, that's not to say we wouldn't get sued or someone might blame us, but I don't think that would be successful in court.
I'm not saying ban them because of that, but I'm just saying if we didn't ban them and somebody did get hurt, if they don't, or if they're not banned, if somebody gets hurt, everybody gets sued, so.
Yes.
well, no, I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, I think we've all been injured riding a bike at some point in our lives. So, I mean, I had someone reach out to me and, they said, like, I only use the electric part of the bike when I'm going uphill. I mean, and you have to think of like family members who are trying to keep up with the young kids, and if they're riding their bike and the only way that they can physically keep up is by having that extra boost. I mean, if we say we can't have e-bikes in Ashland, or even the park, I mean, like, how is that? I just don't see that makes sense, and that's not really fair.
And I believe, and Todd can correct, but I believe the request of the park board is specifically the classification that is solely an electric bicycle, no pedal power. So it wouldn't be applicable in that situation. It's the electric scooters that are causing the issues for the park board.
I mean, but I feel like that's kind of one and the same, whether it has like the pedal option or an option to become electric, then it's an electric bike. If they're using the electric portion at that time, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but.
And again, I don't have it in front of me. One of the significant details is depending on when you can use power and not, there are maximum speed limits that the vehicle can obtain. There are classifications, there's 3 or 4 classes of e-bikes. And again, I wish I had it in front of me, but to your point, when you use the power matters for what classification you're in. As the classification goes up, you're allowed to have a greater speed. It's something like, if you can only use the power under certain circumstances, the maximum speed is 22 miles an hour. So, if you can use it all the time, it's 26 miles an hour. I think we talked about that. But I understand, it is my opinion, that there are circumstances when these bikes would be perfectly legitimate and reasonable. There are circumstances when they wouldn't be used. It's hard to paint with a broad brush on those points. I also feel, and I think this point was made perhaps by you, and I think very prudently, when you're talking about regulating minors, you have a tension between maintaining public safety and the government parenting for people. And that's a sensitive subject, that's a delicate subject. We don't want to intrude on people's ability to, parent their children. One parent may say it's appropriate for little Johnny to run around a bike. Another parent may say that's totally ridiculous. And there's a tension there, no doubt. And so to the extent that we are talking about potentially minors operating these things, that's not to say we can't, but no sense in ignoring there is a tension there and a resistance and a reasonable difference of opinion.
Alderman Lewis, how do you feel about it?
I'm not that familiar with e-bikes. My old brain kind of equates them more like a motorcycle. Just and we certainly don't want to allow motorcycles to run those trails in the park. I would not be in favor of a citywide ban at all of the e-bikes, but
Are we going to close later?
just because those paths out there are not that wide, I can see it causing a problem.
Happy to do it in close.
I'll just, say what I said last time again, pretty much. Like, I would be fine with, passing ordinance that says, somebody can be penalized for reckless operation of a motorbike or an e-bike in the park, something like that. But I think an all-out ban I don't think I'd be comfortable with that.
So the circumstance would be a citizen does get struck. They'd have a municipal prosecution option, right?
Yeah.
I know the park board is working on, revamping this park. So maybe they can revise their walking path currently to be larger, which obviously I know costs more money, but I've been to parks where there's a walking side and there's a bike side. There's 2 lanes on the walking path. So if they're very concerned about it, maybe this is an option that they can pursue or explore.
What do you think?
I think we've spent 7 minutes too long talking about e-bikes. I think it's hard you can't just enforce part of the town, not another part of the town, in my opinion. Kids go to the park to play. Elderly people go to the park to walk or do whatever they do, it's the park. I think people are gonna, my kid goes and falls off the monkey bars, I'm not gonna sue the city because he fell off the monkey bars, right? I'm gonna tell him, look, your fault. If a kid on an e-bike hits a pedestrian with an e-bike, well, that's the kid's fault. And as far as, right now, if somebody runs into another person, could the police get onto them, write them a citation? What would that fall under, I guess?
Well, and that's, really to Bryce's point. At the moment, there are a lot of provisions in the municipal charge code, but we could certainly have a clearly defined one for that circumstance. That's not to say if today someone were seriously injured by an e-bike, we couldn't find a way to charge that. I admit I don't have the particular line available, but I'm confident we can find one. Again, reckless operation of a motorcycle, e-bike, bicycle, whatever it would be.
Or do we leave that to the 2 people that were involved in the accident, keep the city out of it?
Well, I think my idea is broader too, right? Just if the police are down there and they see somebody swerving in and out, riding this e-bike 28 miles an hour down a sidewalk, right? There's the discouragement element of it too, right? If you're recklessly operating.
An officer could go over and issue them a warning.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
And to your point, right now a parent could have a small claims action or even a lawsuit. It's not like the only recourse is the police.
So again, that's where we have to do some more research as well as a broader ordinance, because some of that stuff will fall under the traffic code and some of it won't. So to your point, we have to kind of flesh that out. If there's no desire to ban, we probably need to make some amendments to city code as a whole, but also the park regulations, potentially our traffic code as well, to make sure that these things are clearly defined with potential charges.
I think the Ashland Police Department needs to set a speed trap out on the e-bikes, right there in the park.
All right, so we'll table this discussion.
I don't know if there's anything to table at this point. If there's no desire to move forward with a ban of any type, we'll just continue to explore what other regulatory changes may be appropriate to make sure that these are clearly classified and defined appropriately per code. We'll bring back a recommendation from there.
Sounds good, thank you. Moving on to new business, resolution number 2026-1, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the continuing law of enforcement education agreement with the Boone County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, Sergeant Boss. Nice to meet everybody. As some of you are aware, the Sheriff's Department is nearing completion of a new training facility on their campus. They have taken over what used to be the Law Enforcement Training Institute from the university, and they are now doing all academy stuff locally and kind of regionally. The Sheriff's Department has offered us to do our continuing education at a low cost, which will add to our in-service training for all of our continuing education. The contract is for 3 years. The first year would be free, and then it would be, I think it's 150 per officer for a 2-year commitment after that. 3-year contract, 2 years of payment, which would be roughly $1,800 per year that we would like to add to our budgetary stuff for the following year. Police department is on board with it. We're already using LETI for anybody that we send through the academy already. So it's just basically a name change, and then they're wanting us to assure that we will send our people there.
Any questions?
That 150 per officer, is that per training or is that?
No,
per
that's year, that's the
Yeah.
entire year.
Yeah, yeah.
150 per officer for the entire year. And the first year's free.
We'd be crazy to say no.
Rick and I had the opportunity to tour that building, and it's super nice.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, super nice.
yes.
They have all kinds of nice equipment and
Oh, very much so. And it sounds like pretty much everybody surrounding counties and even 2 counties away are gonna start coming this direction.
all right. Can I get a motion approving resolution number 2026-1, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the continuing law enforcement education agreement with the Boone County Sheriff's Department?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution number 2026-2, a resolution authorizing the purchase of a sewer equipment.
Thank you, Mayor and the board. This is a proposal that was previously rescinded from November 4th. As soon as it was approved, we got new information as we got further and further into this piece of equipment at the wastewater plant that the parts we had called out weren't gonna work, but we needed basically things that were on that list that was approved. We didn't need other things we did, so as soon as I got that approval, it was like, we don't need that, we need this, we don't need 4 of these, we need 1 of those kind of things. So it's since been refined, these parts. Again, let me back up a step. So this is again for the wastewater treatment plant. It's the escalator, which we talked about before. It has 12 socket wearing parts in various quantities that are called out to bring it back into serviceability. This equipment is down. Parts of it have already been approved and already have been ordered. There's multiple failures on this equipment. This will be the last one, we hope. Basically, it has negative consequences downstream. We have to bring in, I think the worst part of it really is we have to bring in sewer staff after hours to do what a machine normally would. So Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, we got guys coming in 2 hours at a shot, manually rating the bar screen, just to do a little backstory and the setup here. So these parts, the majority of these parts are sole source and proprietary. However, we found a local metal fabricator that was able to recreate one of the main elements, the main fine screen elements for this, for $15,510, rather than the almost $30,000 that was quoted from the OEM. So yes, the proprietary, however, we just gave it to a machinist and said, can you make this? He goes, yeah, I can make that. So thereby saving $13,000 off of this quote. So Because we went away from a sole source and found that it actually is not sole source, since we brought in the machinist ended it, Darla informed me that I need to get another bid. So what I'm seeking, the two totals, they're basically for the same equipment. These two totals together are $39,467.22. I'm seeking a not to exceed because I'm gonna seek out another machinist to see if I can get it even lower. If that is the case, then we'll certainly jump on that, but, what I'm in front of the board asking for is for a not to exceed of $39,467.22 for the purchase of a lot of parts, from Hydrokinetics, and then rolled into that is the Kinder machine quote for $15,510. That's in that, $39,000 figure. Again, this was first brought up November 4th. Facts changed, had to change the entire quote, so, but we got everything we need. We've been through it inside and out. We got all the parts we gotta have, cataloged, and, is there any questions?
What was the original amount that we approved?
The original amount on November 4th was $30,146.22. However, it didn't have the fine screen elements in it at all. That was gonna be a separate because the company, and they're in Europe, mostly France or Germany, I think it's France, couldn't give me the quote, so I left that part out. So that the original from November 4th, $30,000 didn't include, bear with me here, which they came up with just 2 weeks ago, the fine quote of $23,000 in addition to that original quote. So again, we were trying to get this done as quick as we could because we're burning manpower and labor hours on top of, all the other grief we're having. So this also going through the machinist is gonna help us because going through the OEM quote is a 12 to 14 week lead time from Europe. And they're gonna machine it, and then it's gonna be on a boat, going through customs, and it's gonna be on a truck, and that's in the spring. So for many reasons, we're gonna go with the machinist, besides the fact that it's half price. But like I said, the not to exceed part of that is we could presumably find an even cheaper quote from another machinist, maybe. It's stainless steel, which is really hard to work with, hard to cut, hard to bend, but maybe. So that's why I added the not to exceed.
And how's you guys' budget looking, just generally? This isn't gonna put you over or anything like that?
Oh, it's not gonna be over, but that is due to sheer luck. Our bond payments start next year, as you know, to pay for the water treatment plant. Wastewater treatment plant, we're not gonna have the kind of budget we had this year, so if this stuff is gonna fail, I keep thanking my stars that it failed prior to the bond payment starting. If you wanna look at it, it is fortuitous because we're basically ending up with a brand new plant. Everything that's, I hate to say this, but it's true. Many of the major components of this plant have failed. And some of it due to wear, some of it due to abuse. We've had Alliance and we had DCRSD, I'm not knocking them. But it's kind of like renting. So, I mean, we didn't take ownership of that plant in reality until just recently. And like I said, many of these things have failed. We're gonna be ending up with a brand new plant in spring, literally, in every sense of the word. All the major components are gonna be brand new. So, to your point, could we have done this next year? No way. No way. Couldn't do it. Not with the bond payments that are gonna have to be made. So, we can do it now, which is just luck. So.
Any other questions?
I move to approve.
Can I get a motion to approve resolution number 2026-2, the resolution authorizing the purchase of the sewer equipment? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Resolution number 2026-3, a resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Ashland, Missouri, adopting a transportation master plan.
Right, I was prepared to wax eloquent, and Kyle said, keep it short, so I don't know that we need to go through a lot. We spent quite a bit of time last fall kind of going over most of the mechanics of the study. Zoom out on that.
Yeah, you just tell me where you want to start and I'll,
Well, I think probably, just to keep it short, we look at just two things. I've got some handhelds here that might be easier to look at for everybody. And you might come in your next looking at sections. We would probably just turn to the last two pages and kind of go over the summary. I mean, there's some of this is the documentation to justify the study.
I can look at his boss, thanks.
Okay, well, I've got an extra one. When I was here, we went through the process and we talked about evaluation of your existing system. And so this, the master plan kind of has two parts. It's got the master plan, but we also did an evaluation of your existing pavement system with really the first part of the master plan is maintaining this system that you've got. So we've got a budgetary recommendation for a level of improvements over the next couple of 2 or 3 years. And then we've got on the last page, this exhibit. I don't know if you can pull that exhibit up, it'd be exhibit 10. But we have, in the master plan, we tried to, in the analysis, we looked at multimodal operations, we looked at roadways, we looked at trails. It was interesting, your conversation earlier, some of the issue of trails. We recommended that you look at a complete streets type approach to your infrastructure. And yeah, just keep going, probably right there. That's the next one after that, I guess.
there it is.
There you go.
Excellent.
And so we looked at pedestrian access, we looked at truck traffic. You have quite a bit of truck traffic in the highway network through and around Ashland. Highway 63 is on the National Highway System, and so there's special funding related to that. There's almost 10% of the traffic on 63 is truck traffic. And, you know, we look at economic development and what have you, that might play into some decisions you make about activities to encourage economic development along the corridor and types of businesses you might want to attract. But we looked at the system as a whole, north to south through the city, and Ashland has some unusual conditions that you're aware of. 63 is a cordon or a barrier between traffic on the east side and the west side of town. Even the more so as MoDOT has put in the median barriers with the crossover streets. And so we believe that's gonna be a critical thing for your long-term plan. And so that was some of the driving criteria or our prioritization. We wanted to focus on, we believe it's important to focus on areas of the infrastructure of the transportation system that allows north-south movement to get to the interchange all the way north at Route H. Of course, improving access to the existing crossover Route Y and M, but then being able to accommodate traffic and growth between those two interchanges and be ready to take advantage of when you get a new interchange 20 years down the road with MoDOT, with at Salem, and then down south at near Highway A and the old Highway 63 tie-in. So With that, we identified key corridors, Highway DD, extending Crump Lane up to Minor Hill Road, completing the frontage road along 63 as much as possible. I think you could probably do from M Highway or Broadway up to Martin Lane. Going north of there would be more difficult because of environmental considerations and the terrain. But you have existing right-of-way along the corridor on the east side, so you could maybe get that frontage road improved a lot sooner with the existing resources that you have. We talked about the prioritization last time I was here, and we made some adjustments based on council's desire and direction. And so in that prioritization, we added a city preference, and with that, we ended up changing or adjusting the priorities. Let me get to that. The Henry Clay from Broadway to Peterson became the #1 recommended improvement, along with intersection improvements at Liberty and Henry Clay. So that corridor was moved up based on the community's concerns. I think some other areas that might be an issue. I think when we did the analysis, we did a travel time and delay study through the city of your main corridors, and most of the city system was operating at a level of service C or better, except for the Main Street corridor along the schools. In the afternoon, those were operating at a failure condition, and not really due to traffic, but more due to the operation of the schools and dropping off and picking up students at both ends of Main Street. And I think that one of the recommendations we have is that you ought to work with the school district to maybe coordinate some improvements to get that interfering traffic off of Main Street, and maybe change the way the school does how they accommodate drop-off and pickups. And I think that would be, that'd be a good thing to study specifically. I'd recommend that you look at doing you could probably do a TEEP study, get MoDOT to help with that. They have a transportation engineering assistance program, and that'd be an ideal type analysis with them, with their school to home sidewalk type things that would fit in, be a good thing to do a TEEP on and get some financial assistance with you. And then you could look at that in detail. We didn't have the scope to do traffic counts or anything. Most of our analysis was based on driving through the corridors and looking at overall travel time and delays. If we had time to do the counts and analysis, we might find a little bit more detailed solution. If you look at, go to exhibit 2, I think. Exhibit 2 is it'll be after the report, right? Yeah, next one after that section, right in there. Yeah, with your maintenance system, we identified you've got about 50% of the city system, roadway system is in good condition. You don't need to do a lot, you need to maintain it. And about another 1/4 of the system is in fair condition, need to do a little bit of maintenance on it to maintain it, and then about 1/4 of it is in poor condition, not failed yet, but got enough bad things going on to it that you need to do some major improvements to it. So with this study, at the bottom of the exhibit, you will see, it should be in your packet, the second, sorry, looking on the screen. You look at, should be the 3rd sheet in this packet. but at the bottom there, I've got a recommended 10-year budget schedule. The first 3 years, we would look at trying to overlay all of the poorly rated street segments in the city. And I think you can do that with about 200,000 a year, 190,000 a year. And that'd be a structural overlay. That'd be areas where you've got a lot of potholing, a lot of alligator cracking, and beginning to see failure. We want to put a structural overlay on all of those roads for the next 2 years. And then at the same time, we want to try and seal coat all of the good and fair roads to maintain those so that we have, you've got a good base that will allow you to do some other improvements. Now that'd be the first 3 years. If you look at the budget on the right, your cost would be about $440,000 for the first 3 years, and then it would drop back to 200,000, and this schedule includes some inflation rates and growth rates, so nothing ever stays the same, but we figured that in with this schedule. And so the idea was that the first 3 years you'd focus on just doing maintenance to make that system last as long as possible. And then while you're doing that maintenance for those 3 or 4 years, work on pursuing additional funding grants through MoDOT. I've got a whole section in here about different funding options and alternatives that you could set up for looking at being able to do some of the major capital improvements that we've identified. The frontage roads, the intersection improvements to Henry Clay, those type of things. So you could focus for the next 3 years on maintaining your system, getting it set up, and then that would leave you several $100,000 based on the existing budget that you could put toward other capital improvements in the system that you could use to leverage with grants and what have you to get the improvements done.
Kyle, how reasonably can we absorb $400,000 in road costs?
I mean, we're spending $300,000+ a year right now, so I mean.
Is this in addition to that or total?
That's total.
We looked at, you've got about $1 million budget on your transportation system based on all the funding. Now, some of that staff and equipment and what have you, and so, when we looked at those numbers, I tried to use that $1 million overall, and I knew you were spending about $300,000 to $400,000 a year in maintenance. And so one of the purposes of doing the evaluation was to target the worst areas so that you could buy yourself the most amount of time, and then use that time to get set up to do some of the other capital improvements a little bit later down the road. It usually takes a couple of years to get funding in place, and if a really major project, you do a preliminary study, then go find the money, and then do the design. It can take 4 or 5 years to do a major improvement. And I think targeting and being prepared and focused can help you be more efficient. And one of the most important things I think we identified in this was leveraging and being ready to leverage your financing, go after the grants, and look at multiple sources for doing the improvements. I don't think I've done a roadway improvement in the last 15 or 20 years that didn't have at least 3 or 4 funding sources. And it just, nobody has a bucket of cash where they're paying for everything. And so I think taking this approach where you focus on a little bit of intense maintenance can get you the time to set up and maybe leverage doing some of the other improvements that we identified in the comprehensive plan.
Now, I know Alderman Turner has some notes on his copy. Are you seeing some of the stuff you addressed, taken care of, or?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with it. I really think we should have our priorities at the bike lanes, but over, some of the major other infrastructure, but maybe we can put an e-bike lane in. There we go. Fixing problems every day.
I hear that. There's probably more funding for complete street multimodal things, and there are, e-bikes is a real issue. I mean, and
whether you're talking about trucks versus cars, or cars versus pedestrians, or motorcycles versus pedestrians, speed differential kills. And so there are some guidelines and some standards for maybe doing what you're trying to do, like, in a park, nothing where you're over 20 miles an hour. But there are some trails, the Katy Trail, they're designed for somebody to have e-assist. My wife's disabled, and she's got a trike that she uses. Well, she can't go if she doesn't have an e-bike. She's not doing 50 miles an hour in it. But it has its place, but it's when you look at your system and look at a complete street system, you want to make sure that those types of vehicles and types of modes of transportation are being used in the right place. And I think that's a legitimate approach to take. They don't let you ride your bicycle on I-70 or I-44 because of the speed differential. There's certain types of modes of transportation that you could use, and then others that are prohibited. And I think you take the same approach with trails. You wouldn't want an e-bike or even a bicycle on a 5 lanes or 5 foot wide sidewalk. Usually you want minimum 8 to 10 foot wide for your trails for that multi-use path. And there are guidelines and design standards that you can follow and implement. I think it's a great discussion, and I think that's something that there's a lot of interest in active type transportation, bicycles, e-bikes, pedestrian, that good discussion to have. Thank you.
My favorite thing about bikes, I tell you, I love when they got their costumes on, those ones that are vacuum sealed to their bodies, and they're riding down range line, taking up, they're like 5 wide.
Yeah, but you can't even honk at them.
Oh, you can honk at them.
No, it's the.
It's against the law to honk at them?
Yes, it is.
You have to lock me up after this.
That's when I lived in Columbia.
Any further questions for Mike?
That's a Columbia law. That makes more sense.
Just a general comment on the speed differential stuff. We know that people always follow the speed limit from our own experiences, so as long as we have reasonable speed limits, right?
Well, as an engineer, I can tell you that the approaches that have been taken used to, because no offense, but you didn't want to be sued by an attorney. So if the speed limit was 55, you designed it for 70 miles an hour, because if there's an accident at 55, you didn't want to be blamed. You'd say it's over-designed. Well, what they're finding is that if you design a road for 70 miles an hour, regardless of what you put up on the speed sign, they're going to go 70 miles an hour. Because I don't know anybody here who, when you drive, you're looking at that speed limit sign and your odometer. You're driving what feels comfortable. And so one of the things that we recommended was the design of new roads and whatever should have a target design speed. And I think that would help a lot of the speeding. We should incorporate traffic calming measures in your design. And that would help control a lot of that stuff automatically.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I get a motion approving resolution number 2026-3, the resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Ashland, Missouri, adopting the Transportation Master Plan.
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Thank you, presentation.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. All right, moving on to reports. Just a couple of things. I did have a resident call me about a property nuisance on 207 Collins Street, or Collins Court. You guys might check on that one. And then also I've noticed, and I want to thank the police department for patrolling the school area during peak times. They actually had somebody pulled over yesterday morning, first day of school. So that's my report. City Attorney's report?
No report.
City Administrator's report?
Just to continue on with traffic study, had a call with Representative Martin this morning to kind of go over some of the transportation needs for Ashland and Southern Boone County. So it's kind of fortuitous that he was looking for information. today when we're talking about adopting our master plan, so I did provide him with our transportation master plan, kind of went over the highlights with him so that he's kind of educated on the issues for Ashland and Southern Boone. Other than that, you should have got an email this morning about the Boone County Regional Training Center, Sheriff's Office Regional Training Center grand opening. That's this Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12. And then also one item that came through today, and this predates pretty much everyone at this table, but a number of years ago, the city started working on a codification project to codify our code book. It hadn't been done in probably 15 plus years when that project was approved. So that codification project is nearing completion. They have mailed the final draft of that book, so we should have that in our hands for adoption sometime in the next month or so. So more to follow on that. As a reminder, with that project, once that new code book is adopted, it will also include a new digitally hosted product for our website. So instead of having the individual chapters broken out by PDF, it'll be similar to other cities you've looked at, like Columbia, for example. You can go, they have a dedicated website for their code where it's hosted, it's live, it's updated, where you can actually search for key terms and go right where you need. So we're excited to see that project wrapping up. That's all I have.
Thanks, sir. Public Works Supervisor.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Christmas was officially put away by Public Works. The Streets Department has returned a rented sweeper last week. Ashland was about 50% swept after 1 week, and I think it was pretty successful. We got a pile of stuff off the street. We'll kind of determine as needed, but I think it'll be part of a maintenance program for the streets going forward. It's not only good for the street, but it's also the stormwater system, and even to a smaller degree, the sanitary sewer system to keep the rocks, debris, silt off the sides of the roads, because that's where it collects. It's not on the crown, of course, it's always in the medians and over here on the sides. But, well.
Tammy, how much did it cost us to rent that?
Oh, thank you.
No, how much did it cost to rent?
The cost to rent, sorry, $4,000 for a week. That, cheapest one I could find. That's about the going rate. I know some cities will hire that out. They're paying for the labor as well, so it gets exponentially higher. The unit we did have had a mechanical failure. We ended up with a larger one, which was fine with me, which required a CDL to drive. Kind of got more for our buck, so to speak. But about $4,000, and that was 50% of the city. See how that goes. We'll see. Try to get the other half and maybe some more next year. Well, again, I won't say maybe it's just biannual. I don't know. I'm gonna observe just like everybody else. See how it goes. When the road temperatures hit 50 degrees or better, which has been the last few days, the streets department will be doing extensive crack sealing in town. So back to the transportation master plan, Exhibit 1A, everything there in yellow is getting crack sealed. That's about 9 lane miles. It's just as it was mentioned already, it's just normal road maintenance. Things like that just haven't been able to get done. It's an all hands on deck affair, and we've never had the staff. Now we do, so that's the plan. We're gonna be doing everything in yellow in the transportation plan. See if we can get to the green, the red, as was also mentioned with that structural repairs, which we're also aiming towards. Under parks, looking into cost proposals for a CCTV or some variation of CCTV to cover portions of the city park for safety and vandalism prevention. Like to focus, of course, in my own purview on the bathrooms, which is where we get a lot of problems. But as mentioned several times, for other reasons, maybe a broader coverage. The first step of that is getting fiber to the area, see what that costs, and then next step would be cameras. So we'll see what that costs in real dollars. And then only other half is the sanitary sewer, which we already talked about, already addressed. That's all I have.
Thanks, sir. Any questions for Kevin? Water Superintendent report.
Mr.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, excuse me. City staff, held a meeting with McClure Engineering, that's for the water master plan. The discussion focused on hydraulic models, and those models are used to analyze the system performance and support planning decisions, for future capital improvements, as well as identify potential system improvements in general. Their finished report is scheduled for February 27th, 2026. Hopefully that's not a moving target, but we're not for sure on that. City staff also reviewed and completed all inspections for the 10-inch main extension on North Henry Clay. That main was put into the service on December 5th, 2025. City staff is still installing water meters. It's slowing down now that the colder months are getting here. Not a bad thing. Gives us time to kind of recoup and get everything back in order, ready for next year whenever it does warm up and starts taking off again. And also, we're still continuing valve exercising. I will say, with our mapping system we have, excuse me, it is a little more difficult now with the valve exercising because our maps aren't updated enough. And we're gonna get that. It's just right now we don't have that. And so we're just kind of working sections south of Broadway to try to get everything, exercised for this year. That's all I got.
Any questions? Thanks, sir. Moving on to Board of Aldermen, Alderman Lewis,
No report.
Alderman Turner,
No report.
Alderman Colbert,
No report.
Alderman Ravencraft,
No report.
and Alderman Bill.
No report?
Moving on to general comments from the public for Alderman and staff. Seeing none. Can I get a motion to go into closed session pursuant to chapter 610-021 legal actions? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Good.
Alderman Ravencraft, Alderman Colbert,
Bye.
Alderman Lewis,
Aye.
Alderman Turner,
Aye.
Alderman Bill. In open session, we have nothing to report. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.